buying the food. We appreciate you.
What is up, everybody? Welcome into Wingnutz, 1402 Millersport Highway, Amherst, New York, the home of the Wingnutz chicken wing. And Mr. Ed is here in the house. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing great. It's an honor to be on this show again.
Well, it's an honor to be here for our last summer live show before we get to training camp next month. A lot to talk about. Bill's Minicamp just wrapped up this week. We're going to get into a lot of that. But before we get there, we got to start with a little story time. What's been going on here at Wingnutz?
We have another wonderful Wingnutz story. This started long before the Knights. We were catering, and Alicia and I were doing our thing. We were doing a big party, about 100 people, and people everywhere doing stuff. I'm cooking. Alicia's preparing baskets of wings. And this guy came up to us and he goes, "Your wings are really big." And being sarcastic, I said, "Pterodactyl." He goes, "You mean they're not chicken?" I was like,
What did you say?
I had no words.
Okay.
I absolutely had no words. I just shook my head and kept cooking.
Listen, if you were to somehow make some dinosaur wings, that would be pretty big time. I think all 3 news stations would be out here.
You know, I don't know what happened to the guy. He just walked away like, I guess he believed me.
Yeah.
He's for pterodactyl. I don't know. But then we had another party where it was the end of the party. And I took the very last tray of wings out and I announced, "This is the end." I was watching women take the wings off the tray and stuff them in their purses.
Get out of here.
No joke. I went running back to where Alicia was. I'm like, "Honey, wait till I tell you this."
Did they have like those Ziploc bags?
Nope.
So they were getting sauce all over their stuff.
Keys, hairbrushes.
Wow.
They were hogging them.
I could see that.
They were hogging
I
them.
can see that. It's a big summer for Wingnutz here in Amherst, New York. We're taking our show on the road in a couple of weeks at the end of training camp.
Yep.
We'll be back out in Rochester at Dorado. August 3rd, I believe, is the date.
Yes, it is. Yep.
We're so excited about that.
I
You
am
were there
too.
last time. It was
Yep,
amazing.
We had a great time. Weather didn't matter. It was raining and we didn't care. Nobody cared.
We're going to bring the sun out this time.
Yes, we are.
Nice.
Yeah.
1,600 wings last time. We're going to beat that this time.
Easy.
Ed, give it up for Ed. We got to get into this Bills talk. Thank you so much, sir.
Wingnutz, thank you.
All right, buddy. Welcome in Ryan Talbot into the house. What's up, buddy?
Hey, not too much. Excited to be here talking Bills.
Listen, you're carrying the show tonight. I'm on my last legs here with the voice. I think we're going to get through it. A lot of shouting today. Luke pitched 3 shutout innings.
That's what he told me.
Doing really well.
Way to go,
3
Luke.
shutout batters, I should say. He's only allowed to pitch 1 inning. Thank you so much to everybody that sent out their thoughts and prayers. He is doing awesome. He's crushing some signature wings right now. It's been a long week, but a great week.
Yeah. And you know what? That's the best part of it, hearing that baseball is going so well, getting that good news. Can't ask for anything more than that.
So where do you want to start?
You know what? Let's just start with day 3 of OTAs, because that is not something that we've seen from Sean McDermott very often.
Yeah, so we heard from Sean McDermott at the end of practice, and the big takeaway was we needed to practice. We needed that day to get a look at the 2s and the 3s, some of the guys that, going into training camp next month, this is the first time that a lot of these guys are coming in and competing for jobs. There's some returning players, but I think they wanted to, give them the extra reps. We didn't see Josh Allen participate on the final day. This was a chance for them to install for the final day, get them a little bit more comfortable in the playbook, and we'll see where the things shake out in a couple weeks.
And that's important. First of all, you have a new offensive coordinator. I know he came in last season as the interim OC, but now he's installing his offense. So for the offensive players, really important to kind of get used to that playbook. A lot of new wide receivers there as well. Defensive side of the ball, that secondary is going to look very different. No Jordan Poyer, no Micah Hyde. You have Rasul Douglas, who came in last year at the deadline, but he pretty much admitted this week, I just did whatever Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer told me to do. Now he's a deep dive in this playbook. He wants those extra reps. Really important on both sides of the ball right now with so many new faces.
So I got a stock up and a stock down to start with. We got a bunch of guys that we're going to go over the course of the show. But I want to start at the defensive side of the ball. And one guy that really stood out to me, made a couple plays in the final practice with the 2s and 3s battling, Daquan Hardy, who, when they drafted him, projected to be Taron Johnson's main backup as a nickel cornerback. He has played that role really well throughout training camp. I think he's active. He has quick feet. He has great hands. He's got great spatial awareness, and he closes in on plays. Like there would be 3 or 4 pass breakups over the course of the 3 days. And this isn't rookie minicamp we're talking about. This is a guy that's battling with, guys that are going to be playing meaningful snaps on Sundays. So I have Hardy way up in terms of his stock. I think he was coming into this thing already pretty high because he's going to return punts and kicks for the Bills. What do you think that does now for this position group, safety and cornerback, defensive backs? Because as we go through the list here, 4 boundary corners, Christian Benford, Kyer Elam, Rasul Douglas, and Jamarcus Ingram. You have the 2 interior players in Daquan Hardy and Taron Johnson. Then you have 4 or 5 safeties. Who's going to end up being the odd man out here?
That's a great question, Matt. They value versatility, though. So, you think of a guy like Cam Lewis. He can play cornerback. He can play safety. You think that would help his stock quite a bit. It's going to come down to what can you do for us in terms of special teams? What can you do for us on defense if your number is called? How comfortable are you in this defensive scheme? When it comes to Hardy, it was interesting. Most analysts did not have him as the best slot cornerback in this draft, but one did. And the Bills were able to get him on day 3.
Who had him there?
I wrote an article on it. I want to say it was Football Game Plan is his Twitter handle, and now I'm blanking on his name. So he had him as the top slot cornerback in this draft class. The way that he's come in, adapted, the Bills have not been shy about Pitt players and Penn State players coming in and seeing what they can do. And for the most part, they've been able to adapt very well to this scheme.
And the other thing about Hardy that I really like about the signing is it's a guy at a position who's backing up an all-pro in Taron Johnson in 2024. Down the road, 2 or 3 years, when you're talking about year 3 and year 4 for Hardy on his rookie contract, the Bills might be looking to move on from a player. I mean, we saw it this offseason in Stephon Diggs, replenishing the ranks at certain positions. I think it's really smart to be thinking year 2, year 3 down the road. Brandon Beane's got to play chess at this point because the roster construction is so difficult when you're paying your quarterback what they're paying him.
Yeah, Emory Hunt. The name just came to me when you were talking. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's part of this whole thing. Remember a few years ago, Terrell Bernard was a 3rd-round pick of the Bills, and everyone said, what do they need a linebacker for? They have Tremaine Edmonds. They have Matt Milano. Well, Edmonds signs a massive contract in free agency with the Bears. We kind of went through training camp last year not knowing who was going to start opposite Milano, but Bernard wins the job. He comes in. He looks unbelievable. Lights out, all-pro level type of play. They drafted Dorian Williams, recently as well, 3rd round. You don't just draft for need. You always think down the road if there's an injury, if you need to make some tough decisions. And that's what the Bills have done a really good job on. They don't just kind of pigeonhole themselves into we need this position. We're going to be it's going to be very easy for us to predict who they're going to take. The Bills take the best player available, knowing that that person could step into a large role sooner rather than later.
I want to stay on the stock up department, and I want to move to the offensive side of the ball. The tight end position group, if you're looking across the roster, is pretty boring, right? Like Dalton Kincaid, Dawson Knox, roster locks. I think a lot of people would argue that Quentin Morris is a roster lock. He plays all 4 phases of special teams. He's pitched in a pinch over the years at tight end. But Zach Davidson has got some juice. And listen, I'm not just talking about the guy's dance moves, which he hit 2 separate occasions this week after scoring touchdowns in practice. This is a guy that got hurt last year. He missed the entire season, but a guy that's super athletic, gets open, which I think they're looking at, and he could be in the mix now when looking at these tight ends at the bottom here if he can compete with Morris.
And Quentin Morris is really good on special teams. He's contributed as a tight end when needed on offense, but it's good to have players to push those, I don't want to say bottom of the roster players, but like you said, the Bills at the top, Kincaid and Knox, those are locks for 1, 2. So for tight end 3, it's good to have that competition. And Davidson, as you mentioned, really athletic guy. It's going to be fun to watch him at training camp to see, can he make a significant push for a roster spot?
He's also one of those guys that I think that you can hide on your practice squad. Like you don't have to get, over aggressive with trying to keep him on your final 53 because if you lose, we've seen over the years, guys like Anderson is a perfect recent example. Guy that's around to a couple teams. The Bills used a draft pick on him a couple years ago. Now he's sitting out there as a free agent. I don't think he's signed anywhere yet.
I think that Jacksonville claimed him off of waivers.
Gotcha. Okay. So, but still, guys that are kind of becoming free agents, bouncing around, not finding a home, once they move on from the roster, it's not like, you can't maybe get a chance later on to bring them back. A guy I'm watching really closely, like maybe a Nick Broker, who they drafted, if he has a tough camp, gets cut, they're trying to get him back on the practice squad. Maybe the Bills look to try to bring him back if he's in the mix and they don't like their interior depth.
Yeah, absolutely. The less tape there is on a player, the better it is for bringing players back. So a guy like Davidson, like you mentioned, injured all of last season, someone they could sneak onto the practice squad if Quentin Morris ends up winning that number 3 tight end job. Same thing, though, with a guy like Broker. If he has a bad camp, the Bills liked him for a reason. They drafted him. They'd like to maybe bring him back as well. So you never close any doors on draft picks, especially.
Stock down. The disappointing department here, but I want to talk about James Cook because if you look at, listen, I say stock down, but in a way, it doesn't even really matter. He's running back 1. He's not going to be a guy that is in any danger of losing his standing with the team. But this drop problem is a problem, something that we're going to be talking about throughout all of training camp. People are going to be watching it when they're out at these practices. He had the most drops of any pass catcher in minicamp and OTAs combined.
And that's what's so frustrating. We've mentioned this a lot. He was the best pass-catching running back in the draft class a few years ago. He comes in, he makes a lot of really good plays last year, but he had about 3 drops in terms of what should have been easy touchdowns. You come to this spring/summer, and you're still seeing that. You'd think that would be the main focus, Matt, this summer for him is the jugs machine, working on the hands, working on catching the football. You're right that there's no competition right now for running back 1, but they did draft a running back fairly early in this year's draft that has the build to block, can catch the ball out of the backfield, and he can run between the tackles and to the outside.
How concerned are you that we're already talking about the injury bug for Ray Davis, though? Like, this is a guy that comes in, plays a very physical style. He's not as big as I thought his measurables looked when I looked at the draft profile. And you get into your first minicamp. Now, listen, maybe it's a situation where, like, you were training for the combine, getting your body in shape for that. Maybe you weren't in football shape. Maybe you got dinged up. We'll see. But I'm always a little bit hesitant. Him, Edouard Ulafosio, another guy that gets banged up during minicamp. That's a little bit of a red light for me in terms of, like, their role and potential impact in year 1, because what's the most important thing? Availability.
Availability is key. You're right. So if this carries over to training camp at all and they miss time, then it is almost a red flag right out of the gate as it for rookies. But Ray Davis, though, in terms of checking the box, he does a lot of things really well. Only knock against him when the Bills drafted him was his age. 23 years old is, old for a rookie coming into this league. But I like everything that he could do from the blocking perspective and running perspective, and he got better each season as a receiver as well. Now he has to put that on tape. He has to put that on the field at training camp. If he can do that, though, like you said, it's not going to really put heat on James Cook. He is running back 1 to start this season, but if he has those drops in season, we've seen that Sean McDermott is not afraid to pull him for a series or 2. I don't want to say he'd be in the doghouse, but he would give opportunities elsewhere.
Stock up. I want to go back to stock up because there's a couple of guys on the defensive side of the ball that I feel like have really made you feel better about the Bills' situation on defense with, a lot of changing faces in the secondary. A guy comes back, Damar Hamlin, after a year where I had him firmly on the roster bubble going into OTAs. He's absolutely shined. His stock is way up. Von Miller's stock way up. But how careful do we have to be here? Because we're just talking about guys playing in T-shirts and shorts. How much can we take what happened over the last couple of weeks and project it in training camp when the pads come on?
With Damar Hamlin, I would like to think you can project that a little bit more than maybe Von Miller. We've seen that in OTAs before, guys that aren't in pads getting around offensive tackles is a little bit easier. With Hamlin, I almost feel like the Bills and Hamlin himself, they were kind of treating him with like child gloves last year, and rightfully so. The guy went into cardiac arrest on the field the season before that. They didn't really know how do you bring a guy back from that in terms of playing time? And they didn't see a lot of defensive reps. He played some special teams. Now it's another season removed from it, and you're seeing him shine at OTAs. You know that he has a good grasp of this defense. He's someone that with the opportunities at safety could really come in and shine. And listen, I think this guy is playing with a ton of confidence right now, not just in terms of football practice. Did you see the game-winning shot he had in his charity game? Rolled some ankles.
Okay, but do you know who did he cross over there?
She was a professional basketball player in terms of college, and I believe she played in the WNBA as well at one point in time. I cannot think of her name off the top of my head, but he was ready. He hit that three. He is playing with a lot of confidence right now, just in general.
It's cool to just see him be in a place where there's so much happiness again. Like I felt like as he was moving back, into football activity, there was just this like question mark around what was going to be like the first day he got hit again, or what was going to be like the first day he went through a whole practice, and there was all these different steps that he had to take. Now he's past all of that. Now he gets to just focus on the football part of it. And Ryan, I'm not ruling out him winning one of the starting safety jobs. Is that too far or too bold of a prediction as we look towards like Mike Edwards, another guy that struggled to stay healthy? He's never held down a starting job. Cole Bishop is a rookie. Taylor Rapp is the one, I think, most solidified player. Could we be living in a world where Jamar Hamlin is the free safety and Taylor Rapp is the strong safety?
I think we could. And listen, I'm right there with you on Taylor Rapp. They brought him back for a reason. They liked what they saw. I thought he got very comfortable late in the year in terms of the play. Now, I thought early in the season there were some down moments, but he played really good football down the stretch. But after that, he really solidified himself. So I have him playing in one spot, one safety spot there. Mike Edwards, availability is the issue. Cole Bishop, it's a rookie learning this system. I know that he's a high draft pick. I expect him on the field pretty early in this rookie season, but maybe not week one. If Hamlin has a strong training camp at St. John Fisher College, how do you not tell him that he's a rotational piece or a bench player? If he's earned that spot, you almost have to give it to him out of the gate.
Yeah, and I almost feel like you also want him to get the reps, right? Like get him back into football shape. He's going to get a lot of opportunities over the course of the preseason, so maybe that'll be the piece of it that gets him to being a more comfortable out there or back, feeling like his old self. But, man, he's flying around. He looks like his old self right now. I want to give a quick shout-out. John Erico, one of our most dedicated regulars, comes out to all of these shows all the time, and what he does every time, explain this a little bit. It's called JB's Popcorn. Check that out. I'll put that on the screen there. You made this request. Take us through what popcorn this was today.
Yeah, so John makes popcorn as a hobby, for fun, for coworkers, for himself. He brought a chocolate peanut butter recently. That was great. But the last time he came, he brought this funfetti birthday cake flavor. Unbelievable, great stuff. And he's always tinkering with flavors. Raspberry cheesecake was the latest. He said that wasn't ready quite yet for you and I to try out. So he brought the birthday cake because I said how good it was, and it's fantastic.
It's sensational. If you love funfetti, it is just about the most delicious kind of popcorn you ever had. The problem I have with all of his creations, you can only have a couple bites. You go too far into that bag, man, and you're going to be feeling it, especially out here eating all the delicious wings, drinking all the great beers here at Wingnutz, 1402 Millersport Highway in Amherst, New York. I'm so excited about the summer plans that we have. We're going back to Rochester. Yeah. Training camp's going to be awesome.
I cannot wait for training camp at St. John Fisher College. Glad that they're going to be back there again for another season. Always a great turnout. Those tickets go within minutes on Ticketmaster every year. The Bills Mafia always shows up in high numbers.
When did the ticket information, because I keep getting people asking me all the time, when did it get announced last year? Because I still have not heard anything from the Bills. I've asked around. Nobody really knows when the ticket information is going to be released.
I feel like it was late June last year, and they gave you a few days heads up, but you have to get on to Ticketmaster immediately, get into that queue, and try to get those tickets, because before you know it, they're gone, and then you have to kind of hope that a friend or someone else has a few extras for you to attend.
So back to the stock up, stock down. I look at the both lines, defensive and offensive line. I think we could kind of put them together a little bit to have this conversation. And I'm going to put a hypothetical to you. Mm-hmm. I'd say a guy like Dwayne Smoot, a guy like Deshaun Williams, and a guy like Lyle Collins as a trio, I would say stock down only in the sense that, especially for Collins, he struggled at times, but the other two just didn't flash anything throughout the entire spring. So I'm asking you, of those three, middle tier free agents that the Bills brought in, and Brandon Beane mentioned it, guys that are trying to like get up to speed on the playbook, get kind of assimilated with this whole group. Who would you place right now as the guy that has maybe the hottest seat or might be the most on the roster bubble looking at training camp?
I would go with Smoot, Matt. And I like what he has done in his career, but he's coming off of an injury. He didn't really pop or flash at all in terms of OTAs. He needs to have a nice performance at training camp St. John Fisher College. We already know in terms of Greg Rousseau, AJ Epinesa, Von Miller, Kingsley Jonathan's another guy that they should be high on. They draft an edge in this draft class as well. Young, productive player out of Troy, pass rusher, good bend to his game. So I don't know necessarily that you can guarantee Smoot a spot. I know Lyle Collins had a lot of struggles at OTAs, but he has some versatility. That tackle guard versatility this team covets.
Yeah, and I think like he's a guy that you'll bank on being like, okay, when he gets into a game situation, you can like go off of all the experience that he's had in the league. And a guy with tackle guard versatility that played the kind of role that he did for the Cowboys in his prime, I still think you hope there's a little bit of Ty and Secchi left in there, right? Like somebody that could come in, give you some meaningful reps if you need them. The thing with Smoot is when he signed his contract, everybody thought, okay, $1.75 million guaranteed. He's a roster lock. I don't think so. I think that he's definitely going to be in a competition. They're not going to get through the summer and say he's just been average and keep a guy like Javon Solomon or Kingsley Jonathan off the roster if they add more juice off the edge.
That's just it. Solomon was drafted for a reason. I don't think he's necessarily an every down player, Matt, as a rookie, but he is someone that you bring in those obvious pass rushing downs because of the bend, the speed, the ability to get around the outside. He might still have some issues as a rookie in terms of run defense, so you want to be careful in terms of how you use him. But with Von Miller, with Greg Rousseau, who has been healthy and looking great, with AJ Epinesa, you already have those three guys locked in. It's more beneficial to give a rookie, a young guy, some reps when those situation arises over a guy like Smoot, where there's some uncertainty in terms of can this guy look like the player he once was?
Smoot is like the poor man's version of Leonard Floyd, right? Like Leonard Floyd had, I think it was 4 straight seasons of 9 or 10 sacks. Smoot had 3 or 4 seasons of like 6 or 7 sacks, right? So obviously a step down as a player. They didn't have to make the same kind of investment. And honestly, they couldn't. They didn't have the money to make that investment. But I think because of that, you're not as married to the guy as being like on your final roster. He's going to have to come to camp and earn it. Williams is going to have to earn it. Austin Johnson to a degree, although I think he's much more of a lock. He plays 1 tech and 3 tech. But those other 2 guys on the defensive line, there's a lot of young players on there. And I think that in the end, if it's close, you might want those guys to win out because there's more runway to develop.
And that's just it. Sean McDermott has always been big on competition, especially on the O-line and D-line. It comes down to who is performing, who is playing well. Now, obviously, in the case of a guy like Von Miller, who had a very good OTA, by the way, those guys you're locked into because of the contract. But when it comes to veterans that you bring in the offseason on a 1-year, maybe a 2-year deal in some cases, you're not locked in on them unless they perform. If there's someone that's better, the Bills have shown over the years that they will go with the younger player or the player that outperforms someone during OTAs and training camp.
I talked a lot about like a guy like Travis Tylan Grable when the Bills drafted him, the tackle, very inexperienced. He's looked the part. He's somebody that now you're talking about a guy. Was he a 6th-round draft pick?
Yeah, 6th-round draft pick, former quarterback in high school, tight end in college his first year. You don't expect him to come in and assimilate to offensive tackle like that.
But it's another Jack Anderson, Nick Broker situation. I don't see a path to the roster for him because of the depth that they have at tackle with guys like Alec Anderson, but more importantly, Ryan Vandemark, who I'm sure spent the entire offseason training at both right and left tackle. So I feel like stock down for Grable, a guy that is going to have a really challenging summer.
Stock down for Grable in terms of a spot on the 53-man roster. Maybe stock up, though, in terms of having a spot on this practice squad because of his lack of experience playing offensive line, offensive tackle. Maybe other teams aren't going to say, well, let's claim this guy and put him on our 53-man roster because he is so raw. He needs that time. He needs the practice reps. Maybe that was something that the Bills had in mind when they drafted him, knowing full well that this is a guy that we think has all the tools, all the ability to develop into a really good tackle in this league, but he's not there yet. And we don't think another team's necessarily going to say, let's give him one of our spots on our 53-man roster.
How many first-round draft picks, pass catchers, are on the Buffalo Bills roster right now?
First rounders. So
I'm putting you on the spot, and you have to put the microphone up to your face so we can hear your pondering as we go through this.
Right. So obviously not Keon Coleman's second-round pick, Andy Isabella's second-round pick, Khalil Shakir fifth-round pick. Curtis Samuel was, I believe, a day 2
second-round pick.
Right. So I might say 0. Am I wrong?
Pass catchers.
Pass. Okay. So you have Kincaid.
One.
Yeah. Sorry. I was thinking just
the
one.
Bills have one first-round pass catcher on their roster right now. So you think about that. The pool of second-rounders, Chase Claypool, KJ Hamler, Curtis Samuel, Keon Coleman, they're really going by committee the rest of the way. What does that do for two guys that I have to put in the stock down category in Justin Shorter and Tyrell Shavers after kind of a shaky spring? What's their path to making this roster?
Path to the roster is playing really well at training camp in the preseason. That's where they're going to get their opportunities to show that they deserve a roster spot, Matt. You know, you look at who is a lock for this roster. Obviously, Keon Coleman. Obviously, Khalil Shakir. Curtis Samuel's coming in, already having experience in this offense. And, you know, as you noted at OTAs, the speed was evident. They have a plan in place for a guy like that. Chase Claypool comes in and has been making plays. So you have a lot of those guys that are showing up. Justin Shorter was a day 3 pick 1 year ago, and the Bills liked him, I think, because of who he once was in terms of a number one, in terms of high school type of a recruit at wide receiver. It just didn't pan out in college for him. But he comes in last season, doesn't really get on the field at all. They had a special teams type of role in mind for him. It didn't happen. It's going to be tough. Tyrell Shavers, UDFA 1 year ago. You like some things about his game. Brandon Beans mentioned him numerous times. But unless that they show up at St. John Fisher College or in the preseason, these are guys that are more likely to be on the practice squad or looking for jobs elsewhere.
Who leads the Bills in touchdown catches?
I'll say Keon Coleman because of the size and the frame in the red zone.
Okay. Who leads the team in receptions and yards? Receiving yards.
Receptions, Curtis Samuel. You're going to feed at, I'm saying at receiver. Are you saying overall?
Overall.
Dalton Kincaid.
Okay.
Dalton Kincaid. Sorry.
So Keon Coleman
touchdowns.
over Kincaid?
In touchdowns.
Okay.
That frame.
And receiving yards.
Receiving yards, I'm probably going to go with Kincaid again.
I think I'm going Kincaid in all 3 categories. I love the Coleman pick, though. I'm a little concerned about Brandon Bean even mentioned how much you could see him looking like a guy that went from a very vanilla scheme in college to what he's trying to download now in the pros. What they're going to ask him to do, where they're going to ask him to win. It's a big spot for a guy that's coming in, and I think he's game for the challenge. But for every great play you see from him, you see one where he's learning. How quick can he learn? How quick can he get comfortable? I'm almost putting him in that first 8 games of Dalton Kincaid last year, where it took him some time to get comfortable. But once he did, he took off. But I'm going Kincaid in all the categories. What did you have, Samuel?
Samuel, I thought receptions. I think you're going to get him the football quickly on plays. Throw it out to him on those screen passes where Stephon Diggs really struggled 1 year ago. That's his bread and butter. Get the ball in his hands, let him create. I think that there's going to be opportunities for him in those quick passes. Now, that doesn't necessarily translate to yards. I think there will be some yard after catch opportunities for him, but that's why I was thinking that route for Curtis Samuel.
Here's another thing I was thinking about watching practice the other day. Do you know who might be one of the biggest benefactors of how the Bills went about their offseason?
Who's that?
Dawson Knox. Now, you think about this. When they drafted Dalton Kincaid, you took a $12 million a year tight end and put him definitively at tight end number 2 in the depth chart, right? But now with all these wide receivers that are kind of just like a bunch of guys that you never know who's going to be the guy that, wins the target share week to week, I think we could see a spike in production, in involvement, if Dawson Knox can stay healthy in 2024. So I'm giving him a stock up.
I think that's fair. And one thing you notice about Joe Brady when he became the interim OC last year, he was not afraid to go to the run game. And, Dawson Knox thrives in terms of blocking at the tight end position. So that will give him more opportunities on the field. If you're trying to lull teams into believing you're going to run the ball and play action passes, that can be where Knox thrives. Knox has been very good in terms of red zone opportunities. I know he was injured last year. I know that Kincaid outperformed him as a rookie, but you're right. Don't write off Dawson Knox.
Not a lot to get into with the linebackers other than the fact that Matt Milano is progressing. It seems like a little bit more every single day. Stock down, though. I already talked about him earlier this week, I think. Balin Spector, the guy can just not get on the field. And then also final stock down, Sam Martin. Dude, I got Jack Browning as the betting favorite to win this punter job. We talked about the missed field goals for Tyler Bass the other day. I think Jack Browning is in a really good spot to take a run at this job.
Listen, when Tyler Bass went 7 for 7, it was with Browning as the placeholder. When you're talking about Sam Martin a few days ago, 3 for 7, I believe, for Tyler Bass. Holding matters right now because with all things even, Sam Martin doesn't blow you away anymore as a punter. He's very average. He'll have a few good kicks. He'll have some that he wants back. As long as Browning can show at training camp in the preseason that he can punt as well, that job might be his.
AJ Giordano, I think he's in the house in here. Get on up here, buddy. We got to have our little segment with the man, the guy that makes it all possible out here every week. He's got the little one. Come on up here, buddy. So he gave me the date on this earlier today. He's wiping her face. Now you got to bring her on. As is. Get in here, buddy. We got the little one here today.
Everybody, how you guys doing tonight?
We're great. We're great. How's she doing?
Good. She's a big girl now. She
is getting so big.
She's got no interest in crawling. She's starting to say mama all the time.
That's awesome. Say hi. Oh, you're gonna eat it? You're gonna eat it? I know.
Yeah.
We're all eating these delicious wings. Whenever she
For sure.
steps foot in this place, she's ready to eat.
She
Now,
loves her wings.
Here's my question.
Let's go.
So I was texting him. We got Bills in a second. He texted me this morning. So we go back a long way, me and AJ. Back when I used to sing.
St. John's.
Yeah. And he texted me this morning and said that Talbot's going to be putting One Sweet Day on the board here.
Talent
I sang
show,
One
8th grade.
Sweet Day at our 8th grade, like moving up day with my sister.
It was really good, too. I thought he was going to hit it big, and they were going to have like a group or something.
We didn't hit it big. We didn't
Sibling
hit it
group.
big at all. But I think me and Talbot are going to do a little karaoke here
Let's
at some
do it.
point. Not tonight.
Absolutely.
Not tonight. All right. Bill's question of the day.
Let's go.
Are you ready?
Give it
Who
to
are
me.
you most excited to watch play on the Bills defense in 2024?
Terrell Bernard.
Terrell Bernard.
Yeah,
Why?
I think having him full health back year 3, I really expect to see big things from him. Deontay Hardy, I'm really excited to see some stuff from him. I was real excited when they drafted him. He reminds me exactly of Taron Johnson. So there's a couple of guys I'm excited to see.
All right. Let us know what's on the menu, what's new over the last 2 weeks, and what people should expect here at Wingnutz.
The Keon Coleman sticky wings with the lemon pepper.
Ooh.
That's probably our most popular wing right now.
All right.
They're ridiculous.
All
People
right,
are
so you
going
heard it
crazy
here
over
first.
Yep.
Get in
let's
here
do
and
it.
get the sticky wings, man. That's awesome. Thanks, AJ.
Cheers. Go Bills.
All right. I love that shirt, by the way. Shout out to David, one of our insiders that brought this thing out. It's going to have to be our new logo. We're still working on that. We'll get it. Final thought, Ryan. I'm going to give it to you. I can't even speak.
Final thought. I cannot wait until training camp, Matt. Bills Mafia, stick with us. We'll have multiple episodes on Shout after every single training camp practice. And you know who else needs to stick with us? The Shout Insiders, Matt.
They do. 716-528-6727. We've had a record-breaking month. It is only going up from here. Wait till training camp. We're going to blow this thing out of the water. For Ryan, I am Matt. Wingnutz, 1402 Millersport Highway, Amherst, New York. Get out here. We'll see you next time. Take care, everybody.